order at 7:03. Roll call, please.
Okay. Director Slater Carter,
Present.
Director Warren,
Present.
Director Penrose,
Present.
Director Boyd,
Present.
Director Clark,
Here.
and Director Reddick.
Here.
Oh, and I would note that we have Director Clark here instead of Jim Blanchard,
Correct.
as we have on the agenda. Public comment. I don't see anyone. Okay, no public comment for now. We will convene in closed session. Conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, 4 cases. Conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, 9 cases. Oh, we have been busy. 9. A conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, San Francisco Bay Regional Water Quality Control Board, B Sewer Authority, Midcoast side. Slips in front of me, I don't see any mad hand waving. I see some head shaking, but no hand waving, so let's move on to consent agenda.
Before we move on to the consent agenda, we should report out
Oh,
that
let's report out that no action was taken.
Okay, the consent agenda, the minutes from September 25th.
Oh, you're getting nitpicked on
Oh,
first
she
line of
is.
the minutes?
I am. My turn.
The first line. Yes, I
Yeah,
I
what
have
does
letter,
not-
letter.
What does
never
not
turn.
seem to be included in there is Scott's statement about payment
No.
being made to Carl's firm, or to Carl. Where you came up with that wonderful statement where you said,
Yeah,
anything that had to do with the HMB.
The motion.
Lawsuit.
yeah, so the motion,
Would
the
not be
wording of the
included.
motion went in the minutes?
It
Yeah.
was not in it.
No.
Oh, that should be in there.
minutes.
I'm sorry, I thought we had put that in there.
Okay, no, that's,
We
So
will get that
needs
in
to
there.
go in there.
Okay, let's, I tell you
We'd
what,
like to know what it
let's,
is
I
before
have
we
another thing in the
approve
minutes.
it.
well, just a minute, let's,
yeah, we can pull the minutes till.
Yeah.
pull the minutes to the end
Yeah.
And
then.
I have a question on a number of things in the warrants. Was that,
Okay,
did you have any
disbursements?
more?
No, that was the only thing. that
Let's
I-
move item A to
So-
the end of the agenda then, and go to disbursements that Mr. Warren has questions on.
Clicked on that and it didn't move.
Which page?
I have to scroll through it, I'm clicking on the bookmark and it's not taking me there.
Oh,
Item 6B you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm looking
I don't
for my
see a page.
highlighting. On,
Page
okay,
8.
on PDF page 9,
give us
there's-
another point of reference, a vendor
It
note?
What's the
says, it
vendor
says
name?
9 at the bottom, oh,
I'm looking at 3
She's
of
got a
it says
6.
page 1 of 6 on the bottom right corner. Okay, the vendors
I
are
only
alphabetical.
have
I understand, on the bottom right corner of the disbursements,
Yeah.
it's gonna say page 1 of 6.
Okay,
Is that correct? The
It's
vendors
on
are in
page
alphabetical order, so AT&T fiber optic,
Mhm.
where do we have fiber optic?
It's our T1 line.
Why do we have a T1 line?
This has been a nearly 2-year process because it was the only way that we could get onto a combined business plan that would save us money. We were paying about $1,300 a month in phone. And they wanted to put us on a different system, but they would have had to have pulled the line all the way down the road to us, and it was over $200,000. We said, no, thank you. And so then their alternative was to do the T1 line, and so it's cut our phone bill basically in half.
So even with this cost, because this looks like it's just for the fiber optic, or is that also the phone line?
That's the whole thing.
Ah,
It's a combined plan.
okay. Next item I have a question on is on, two vendors down Calcon. On distillery grinder station service, I thought grinder stations are always the property owner's responsibility.
No, we service this through the contract agreement that we have for the collection system. And so we get the work done and then bill Montera Water Sanitary District for the cost. So it's a pass-through, but we still have to pay the vendor to start with.
Okay, can we get some indication, I thought I asked for this before, but I don't remember if it was here or not. Can we get an indication of which things on this report are passed through this?
That normally, I thought we had that.
Are you talking about like an asterisk or a
Something.
little P or something?
Some sort of indicator. but,
Okay.
uh,
And we'll have to look at the system to see if there's some form of an indicator that we can add in there. We know because of the account codes, but other than that, I can basically, if you look at page, this will be page 6 of 6. If you look at about halfway down, the account number 100-303-35616, it says CS Repairs MWSD. That's the account line item that tells us it's a pass-through. So, but I can see if there's something we can do on the vendor side. And, yeah, because we only have one vendor code. We don't have a vendor code for each of the member agencies for, if it's CalCon, it's CalCon through SAM.
All right.
But we can look at that.
I think at the next page, vendor is happened by Auto Parts.
Yes,
You know, I like things itemized somewhat, but I don't think we need line items for 25-cent bulb and a 23-cent bulb. Then we look at the tail end of the same listing and it says various supplies plant twice with very large numbers. And so why do we have some trivia itemized, but then the other ones that are much bigger numbers are not itemized?
okay. I will talk with staff to see if we can find a data point on the where, the description. I mean, we put in there SAM 4, SAM 10. We do that so we know which vehicle it was, but certainly we can look at collapsing those line items, so.
I wonder if it depends on which staff member was submitting the report.
No, they're all on the same day,
Oh,
so, I'll have a conversation with the accounts payable person to see if we, and with Kathy to see if we can come up with something like, especially something that small, we could just say parts for SAM 10, parts for SAM 4,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the US Bank is on PDF page 11.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a listing in here of what all the Visa statements are? Because a notation of Visa statement is a completely useless notation.
Yeah,
No
no,
point in
it,
having it printed there.
it's actually about 5 pages past that.
mm-hmm.
You'll see the breakout of the, because it doesn't come from the accounting system, staff does it separately.
There's the breakout.
How do I find it in here?
I don't know.
Do you know what PDF page number is?
It's about 6 pages farther in.
18,
Does
Yeah.
it start with office kitchen supplies?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
at the bottom of the page it says 2017-0922 Visa work file,
Right.
Yeah,
under Director's Report.
yeah, on the top.
Otherwise, it's
Okay,
Page
maybe
18,
maybe if the
PDF.
word Visa could appear somehow.
It
on
does.
the page.
It
Does
does.
on the
Right
bottom.
Right here, right here.
At the bottom of the page?
I don't know why it says Director's Report at the top.
I'm not sure, I'll talk to
That
the,
just sounds like a
yeah.
glitch. Maybe
Yeah.
we can fix
It's
the
just
glitch.
whoever named the file, so I will let them know to change that,
Change it to Visa.
Visa
Yeah.
report.
yeah.
Visa report, US Bank.
Okay, and I think I
Yeah.
have one last question, which in fact is on that report.
Mm-hmm.
On promotional products, pens, totes, flushes, $1,400, what?
That's,
It's not cookies.
yeah, no, it's for the sewer science program that we do with the high school.
It's a good thing.
yeah.
It helps them remember to tell their parents,
I
right?
don't
Yeah.
know, that'd be like 14,000 pens.
Anything that gets
no.
them to tell their family members not to flush certain items down the toilet, it's
Like
gonna be
pens?
worth way more than that.
They're actually the pens that have the logo on it, just like your coffee cups. So they actually are, and this was something that was part of the discussion that I had with Director Lohman very early on as part of the outreach committee, is ways to try and get SAM out into the public so that SAM itself has a presence. And so that was when we started doing the pens and the coffee cups. And for the sewer science program for the students, we've done that. We've got printouts of the FOG flyers, both Spanish and English, as well as toilets are not trash cans. And it's very specific to SAM, so it's not a generic flyer. And then we also have the disposable envelopes where you scrape your fat into it and then you can throw it away. So what we're trying to do is, through the high school students, introduce it to them and their families about what to keep out of the system.
Great.
And that's part of the pollution prevention program.
Okay, that's all the questions I had on that report. Could you send me like the quantities and cost each on those promotional items?
Sure.
And anybody else who also wants to look at it?
I don't wanna see it. No.
Finding a bulk order.
No,
Do
I,
you like the little puffy stuff, little piles of,
moving along.
just
Yeah,
checking,
get the Sam plushie, that's right.
Yeah.
the Sam plushie.
The Sam
Okay, let's
plushie.
have a motion to approve 6B then, and we will finish up with 6A at
So
the end of
moved.
business.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I-
Abstentions? Motion carries.
Who,
Moving
I'm
on.
sorry,
Who
who
seconded?
moved and seconded? I-
I
First
moved.
was Deborah, second was Leonard.
Oh, thank you so much.
Regular business, award construction contract to the apparent, now I find the word apparent interesting, lowest responsive and responsible bidder for the force main replacement project.
Yeah, I've been doing this for 20 years, I don't remember seeing a parent every report.
Is that a wiggle word?
Yes, and it's actually how we're supposed to say it, because until the award is actually done, we're saying that this appears to be the lowest responsive and responsible bidder.
And it may change.
It's
Okay.
entirely possible that the apparent second low bidder could have come in and point out an irregularity that no one had seen in the low bid, and you could decide that they weren't really the low bid because it wasn't truly responsive. That's
Gotcha.
possible. So,
Okay, well, let's move on to item A then.
So, as the staff report says, we, after getting direction from the board, we went out and we did publish for the notice of the bidding. And I'm going to let Kishan talk about the process and how they went through the process, and then the results of the process, and then we can talk about the board's options.
Yes, so basically staff approached the board for approval to go out for bids. The entire bid package was presented to the board, and after receiving approval, staff advertised it in two newspapers, that is the Half Moon Bay Review and Mercury News, on two subsequent weeks, which is basically day of September 6th and September 13th. And we also reached out to people and put it on the website and spread it out as far as possible. We had called for a mandatory pre-bid meeting on September 18th. So there are about 10 contractors and subcontractors inclusive who had shown up for the mandatory pre-bid meeting. We had also a walk through the site, took them to the force main, told them they had a look at the areas where it needs to be done and what all difficulties one might come across. We explained to them in detail. And then 3 bids were received on September 29th. And these were all opened in the presence of the bidders. And the bids and the bids were actually split up into base bid and alternate bid as informed to the board earlier, because we had said that two segments, which is segment 1 and 3, where there has been SSOs, would definitely need to be addressed, and those were a part of the base bid. And the bid alternate, which is segment 2, was to be considered in case we would like to, I mean, if the bids come low and we'd like to do that, or if it comes high, then we set it aside. So with that in mind, we had kept basically two demarcations, one is the base bid and the alternate bid. So 3 bids were received, and we have the results indicated in the staff report, and staff is available here for questions.
I'm confused about something. I thought we had $1.5 million available, so why is their bid, which is this much over, why do we need 206,000 more?
Well, as discussed ad nauseum during the budget process, we were told to keep everything that we were doing in the infrastructure plans this year to 1.5 million. Not this project, the entire infrastructure budget, which also includes the engineering cost, Kishan's time, the surge tank. So by the time you put project management, all of that into it, the actual availability of construction funds is less than 1.5.
I wish the staff report had said that. So,
Well, that's why I included a copy of the budget, so that you could see that the total for the entire year is 1.5, and the construction component of it is 1.3. So that you could see that that was what was in the budget.
that page was in there.
Deborah?
I have a question. So is segment 2 in the middle of segment 1 and 3?
Yes.
Is it go 1, 2, 3?
Yes.
Yes.
And why would including it disqualifies from the application for the grant?
Because you can't have already awarded a contract or started construction.
Because when we go out for a bid, it is necessary that the bid package should have all the federal language in it when we go out for a bid.
And our bid did not have that language?
No, because we still haven't, yeah, we did not have it because we've still not awarded, we've still not gone through the process itself. And all this would be done only once the grant is awarded.
Right, because it would have the language that we need to have in it.
Correct.
And we won't know until we are notified by FEMA if we have or don't have the grant.
One example of one of the things that I noticed with certain FEMA programs, they're not under the Miller Act, which is the federal prevailing wage laws. Certain ones are, certain ones aren't. So you don't know until the FEMA figures out where the money's coming from, what program it's coming from, whether you're gonna have federal prevailing wages or not. And there's a series, I mean, there's a whole long laundry list of federal clauses that go in. I know because I had to squeeze them into a set of standard specs for another client and try to figure out how to fit in all these different FAR provisions. You can't just, guess and put it in advance.
Okay, wait a minute, it's Deborah's turn.
Yeah, how much is this grant that we're applying for? And what is the deadline for applying for it, and how close are we to writing up the proposal?
The applications are due by November 1.
Uh-huh,
So we had attended a workshop last month where it was a 2-day workshop, and we went through the entire process of how we need to apply for the grant. And there's a particular software which we need to use, which is supplied by FEMA. We were trained on that also. So all that put together, we need to submit it by November 1. And the grant which, the notice of intent, or I don't know what it's called notice of NOI application or something, which was accepted by FEMA, was for $3 million, was for a total of $3 million. And the way the grant goes is 75% of the amount gets paid by FEMA, and the balance 25% is what we need to supplement.
so we're talking about 3 million for segment 2?
We would like to include segment 2 and 4 when we apply for the grant.
2 and 4?
Yes.
Which is, 4 is not here.
So
4
we
is
don't
not
have a
there.
bid on 4?
No.
4 is partly force main, partly gravity, and we've had no history of SSOs on that, so we haven't included it in the bid package, and we'd like to take it up at the end.
But it would be
But
timely
but still-
to repair it.
Exactly, but still we'd like to add it to the grant package.
Yeah, and the problem is that if we wait till we get the notification, it's a very competitive grant, so there's no guarantee we would get it, and we wouldn't find out until late
Early
spring.
spring, yeah.
Yeah, early spring, so which means we wouldn't even be able to, because you can't have already gone out to bid, you can't have done any of that, so we wouldn't be able to move forward on the Arroyo section, which is the one that has been
That's
the,
segment 2?
no, the segment
Segment
three, correct? Segment 3 is the one where we have the temporary section up, where it's
Right.
on the bridge.
Right,
We wouldn't even be able to go out to bid on that until we get the notification, which means we'd have to wait till springtime of 2018 to even go out to bid.
Right.
And we did not want to delay it.
So in other words, to get these two sections underway, we can't tie them to this application process, because that
Yes.
would push everything out. So to get them going, we just need to
Correct.
Yes,
get it done, and then apply for the stuff that we think we can defer.
yes.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with section 2 when we go out for bid again.
yeah, it looks,
It'll give us an interesting idea of did cost of construction go up or down, or stay the
yeah,
same.
they're talking here, we're talking about 445,000 for segment 2. What would the cost for segment 4 be?
Don't know.
We have no idea.
We
We
did.
do have, we do have our engineer's estimate.
Yes,
Yeah,
An engineer's estimate is about 500 to 700,000.
okay,
but we didn't do the design and bid on
We
that,
haven't,
so we
yeah.
don't.
right, no, I know. So that's a total of 1.2 million, something like that for the
Yes.
two segments?
Yep.
And we're applying for a $3 million grant?
At the time when we put in our application for the notice of intent, we had the entire 4 segments in mind, and we had put in an application for $3 million. And now we've just, whatever's left over, we'll apply for that.
Because we didn't know that we would have this timing issue, that if we had already gone out to bid, we wouldn't be able to qualify for the grant. So we put it all in our notice of intent. And then when Kishan went to the training and found that we can't have started the process, it was, well, we have two choices. Either we keep moving forward and we do just those 2 sections that have had the biggest issues, or we wait and we hold the whole thing and roll the dice that we will get the grant. And there's no guarantee.
And what would Water Quality Control Board think if we rolled the dice?
Yeah, they want to see this resolved quickly. The county wants to see it resolved quickly, and so does Caltrans, since it's their,
Okay,
over
Debbie,
their
and
bridge.
then Leonard.
I'm actually coming down on awarding to Bay Pacific and do the base bid plus the alternate. You know, doing everything at once saves money. You know, if you only have to mobilize once and buy materials at present day cost, I think there's gonna be savings there. I see these, you know, the fires, the hurricanes, we already know that the cost of materials is being driven up, that bidding's becoming super competitive. I've looked into this grant, it's very competitive. I say we just lump segment 2 with 1 and 3 and get them all done at the same time, you know, under the same mobilization. And get those materials all under one price at the
So
same time.
where would the additional money come from?
Yeah, because the issue that we have is the stipulation in order allows us to bill the agencies for the planned 1.5 million. To make the base bid work, it's drawing down 200,000.
Half Moon Bay's willing to put up for that. We just think there's more savings and it's more reasonable to do 1, 2, and 3.
Well, and the staff's recommendation was based on that there weren't additional resources available outside of that 1.5 and the,
Well,
The
I think we
drawdown.
understand why you made the recommendation. The question
Yeah.
to the board is a policy question.
Well, it's also a lawsuit question.
Well, it's a policy question.
Yeah.
First and foremost, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm with Leonard, I'm interested, like you, in doing all 3 sections at once. I'm also interested in getting the project underway. If we take the time to go back to our agencies before we award the bid to make sure that we come up with the extra $500,000. Had we done that earlier this year, it'd be a whole lot easier, but here we are, so. Do we have a way to get the money approved in short order so that we can award the bid? Because if we don't award it, we're gonna be digging hard into the wet weather season.
Packet prep day for Granada is this Wednesday. I could get it on the agenda. Granada can afford it. So if Half Moon Bay indicates that they can come up with the money, then the question is, can Montera come up with the money?
Well, we were the ones who were pushing hard on taking the budget number up by $500,000.
And we meet
So-
next Tuesday.
Yeah.
We have, you know, we're pretty firmly on record as wanting to do this, but none of this is approved by any of us.
Right, so what are our possible approaches at this meeting?
I mean, we understand everybody's interest. We can draw into reserves.
Yeah.
But I don't know how much is there to draw on.
Well, there would be enough to cover this in the short term, meaning we could award the contract and then in the next month or so, get those back billings to get up to the larger amount, then we would be okay. But obviously, that's not something we could carry all year.
So is there room to negotiate once we, award the bid? Can we negotiate further with the contractor?
Not consistent with public contract.
No.
Just a
I mean,
question.
one thing the board could do is to say award the contract with all three segments on the condition that the member agencies approve the funding. That's extra funding that's necessary.
I think that's good.
And that, we would know that within a couple of weeks, I think.
So
Just an idea.
if I'm the
Just an
contractor,
idea.
I don't mobilize one piece of pipe
No?
at all until I see 3 agencies vote and this board meeting to ratify it.
When does Montera meet?
The same time as Granada next Thursday. I think we still have that on the agenda. We're doing
The
2 a month.
19th, yes.
Well,
But I'm very concerned about adding even 2 weeks to this schedule. We're in October. It could rain any day.
And that was the reason why we had the meeting today, even though
Right.
offices were closed.
No,
Yeah.
we can't award a bid depending on money that we don't have. I know that much about this kind of stuff.
Well, we could do a special meeting, well, no, because there wouldn't be time, because by the time you guys have your meeting, it's almost time for our board meeting, so.
Are we still gonna have
Yeah.
a special meeting on Wednesday?
We are.
Maybe we could
Maybe
add
we could
that
add
to
it
the
to the-
agenda.
but Granada and Montera's meetings are next
Not until next Thursday.
week.
So we'd be meeting
And
before
ours
we
is
went in.
next Tuesday anyway.
So we were gonna have a special meeting on another subject. We could add that this week, but,
On the 11th?
Yeah, but our council meeting is before they even meet.
no, I'm
Yeah.
talking about the special meeting for.
No, I know, but I don't think
The
there's any
regular,
need for it.
yeah.
But we would be
because-
done by the time they
Yeah.
met.
We were just trying to keep this moving, which is why we made the recommendation, because this recommendation is something that staff feels is doable, given the limited resources that we have and the timing that we have to keep it going. Of course, staff would like to do all 3 segments. I mean, that would make the most sense.
Well, that's what we're
So-
coming down. I mean, we're not
Yeah.
gonna, I'm not gonna be in favor of doing just KJ Woods in the basement, so.
Yeah.
But we're gonna be at a loggerhead anyway, so.
The difference, including segment 2, the difference between the 2 low bidders is
Nominal.
67,500.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the base bid, the difference on segments 1 and 3 between the 2 bidders, that difference is 34,000 and change.
Yeah.
I mean, the first and second bidders are really close.
Yeah, and it really does make a difference, whether it's the base bid or all 3 bids. That's the issue, because
That's what a parent means.
that's what a parent means, and that's why we worded it that way. Because it really does depend on which of these choices the board makes. Staff just wants to get the project going, because obviously we want to demonstrate to the regional board that we're moving this along and we're not waiting for anything. And 2, everybody that's involved wants that temporary fix.
Right, let me make a
Removed.
suggestion and see if council thinks that we can actually do this.
Okay.
Can we approve right now segments 1 and 3 to Bay Pacific with the assumption that it is our intent to get the rest of the money to also have them do segment 2.
Well, as Scott pointed out, they're not going to make decisions to purchase materials and mobilize equipment until we actually.
Yeah, they're gonna wanna know what segments they're doing.
They're just gonna sit or contest our decision.
Yeah.
And
Because-
if we
If I
don't,
was KJ Woods and we did something like that, I'd probably think seriously about challenging it.
Okay, that's why I was
Yeah.
asking for
Yeah.
legal opinion.
if we can't award with money we don't have.
Well, Beverly says we can fund it out of reserves. How much
Do we,
would that leave in that reserve account?
We would probably have in the vicinity of about, once we put back the two months worth of operating reserve, probably about $500,000 of emergency project reserve, which means,
Which is not much.
Well,
Yeah.
Since all the directors here seem to be indicating that they have confidence in their member agencies approving the 2 million plus or minus number, I am inclined to award it to Bay Pacific and with the setup that we will take it out of reserves and we'll expect the member agencies to replenish that money upon approval.
what are we seeing the year-over-year cost of materials? What kind of rate are we seeing right now?
the E&R rate, the engineering increase.
Yeah. Roughly, I mean, are we seeing, what, 5% a year, or?
Less than that.
Yeah.
Well, I could look it up right now.
Hasn't the hurricane affected it at all with the cost of PVC and,
Oh, I'm sure
Supplies and-
rebuilding on the Gulf States will,
Yeah.
affect labor, materials.
So,
here.
I mean, I'm gonna spitball it and say, if we wait a year, I would expect the cost of any project to go up 5%.
Minimum.
And just, with everything, health insurance and all the other things, cost of materials, we're looking at, between the two on section 2, they average out to about $500,000. So we already know that we'd save $69,000 to get section 2 into this year by taking the lower aggregate. If we increase that $500,000 by another 5%, we can start to talk now about, what's that, another 25,000 on top of that. So getting close to saving $100,000 to go ahead and award it now. I think we can make a fiscal argument to go arm twist our boards to say, look, let's go ahead and do this thing.
Not to mention potential fines.
Well, and I think we're all interested, I think it's unanimous, we want all of these trouble sections done. And, the cost of mobilization and all that, well, in fact, on the bid alternate sections, you have to add mobilization, demobilization on either side of that, so those numbers will go up just for that. So we're probably into saving $150,000 just to do it.
I think ratepayers would approve of this approach.
I'm just saying
I
if
think
it
the
sounds
regional board
okay
would
when we
like it
say it out
too.
loud, yeah.
I think the regional board would be much happier with us saying we're gonna do 1, 2, and 3.
So
look smart.
just to double check, so where you think the emergency reserve winds up after we backfill, after we catch it up to where it's supposed to be with what we're all committed to do anyway, that after we take out this additional 445, that we'll still have about $500,000 in there.
Yeah.
So I think we all need to recognize that we're gonna have to do something to replenish the emergency reserve as well.
And
Yes.
very soon, not spread it out over a significant period of time, but we need to be able to have Sam collect that money, front-loaded, so we have the money in the emergency reserve fund.
Well, and that was the part of the budget that I had mentioned that if the budget had been adopted, we would have wanted to bill the infrastructure portion of it in 6-month increments instead of 12-month increments, because the project costs come sooner rather than later, and we would need to do the same thing So if this is done and the member agencies approve it, then we would want to bill a very short period of time for that additional amount. Because if we were to have another rainy season, we more than likely would be dipping into that for any emergency project, which I really hope we don't need.
Well, good. So do we have a motion? It sounds like we're all madly in agreement.
Well, I'll try it. So I was gonna move the staff recommendation, but now that doesn't work.
Right, there were 3 staff
Well,
recommendations.
It's
second
the-
option,
Number 2 is, option
second
2 is
option
Oh,
on
okay.
what we're talking
Yeah.
about.
I didn't highlight.
page 21 of the PDF.
Okay, I move that we award the base bid and alternate bid to Bay Pacific Pipelines, Inc., the bidder who submitted the apparent lowest total bid in the amount of $1,997,050 for construction of segments 1, 2, and 3, and that we cover the additional amount from Sam's emergency reserves and request that all of the member agencies backfill that money within 3 months.
That would be very helpful.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries
Thank you very much.
unanimously.
Just send us the action you need from us.
Yes, I will. I'll work on that tomorrow.
You're gonna send it to all 3 of you.
Yes, I know you all
Draft
have,
invoice.
yes.
But we'll need to have that preferably by Wednesday.
Oh, you'll have it tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to new
Can
business.
somebody tell me?
Oh, I'm sorry,
No, we've got-
regular business.
My
Still not
bookmarks are
paid.
not working. Can somebody give me a PDF page number?
Right, I said, regular business,
Ah,
I was going to
right.
7B.
Gotcha.
It's just that I'm used to new business and old business, so I have to readjust to the new
Right.
agenda. Moving on to regular business 7B, award contract in the amount of $30,378 to Blacko Industries for the surge tank replacement project.
Under page 74.
Warren,
No,
Director
page-
Warren, was that a so
Close to
moved?
it.
Yeah.
Director Warren is so
68.
I
moved.
read the
Second.
staff report.
And a second from Mayor Ruddick. All those in, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries unanimously. Woo-hoo, that was a record. Let's move on to minutes. This will take a while.
So what Deborah didn't cover in the minutes is.
Okay, let's repeat for the, just because we're covering this all at once for the person amending the minutes. What was it you wanted to see changed at the very beginning? You wanted the motion or the
It was
language that Scott made?
Yeah.
He was to email it to us.
Oh, you have that language, correct?
Yeah, I think I have it written down. I'm sorry, I didn't
Okay.
realize it didn't make it
Right.
in.
Yeah, I just like that included in the minutes.
Yes.
Yes,
I
We can
agree.
just bring this back at the next meeting,
why don't we
Yes.
just do that?
and then that way we
Okay.
don't have to sit here and
Right.
then
Right.
if you have something after the meeting, you can just tell me what.
Let me just tell you right
Okay.
now, it says call to order, Chair Slater Carter called the meeting to order, except that Bill Huber was here in her place.
And
Oh.
Leonard Warren called the meeting to order.
Sorry,
A little copy paste.
We just look alike.
yeah.
That's true.
Now watch that.
Twins.
Vice Chair. Sorry, Vice Chair Warren. You know, and there's like 5 of us looked at this and we all missed it. I will get that fixed, we'll get the other language in there and
We'll see it at the next meeting.
you'll see it at the next meeting.
Okay, general manager's report.
We don't have the written report this meeting, it'll be at the next meeting, but I did want to just remind everyone I'm going to be out I'll be here tomorrow, but then I'm going to be out for the rest of the week in New Orleans. And Kishan's going to be the go-to person for that period of time, as well as Kathy and
Do
Tim.
you have waiters?
Yeah. Thankfully, my daughter said it rained for like a downpour for 15 minutes right after the football game, and then that was it.
Oh, good.
So
Did you say Kathy and Tanner?
I said, yes, and Tanner as well as Tim. Yes. Kathy, Tanner, and Tim
Okay.
will also be here to help out,
The important.
which is why I know you'll get that language tomorrow.
Attorney's report.
I will pass on reporting anything.
Okay, director's reports. Okay, I did attend the California Special District Association meeting, conference in Monterey for a few days. The most important part of it, well, the part they emphasized a lot was the Little Hoover Commission report. And the fact that
Topic?
They're
The
still
letter-
chewing on that one?
the letter from, no, they were very pleased. Having California Special District Association actually have lobbyists this time as opposed to the last Little Hoover Commission report. And being able to work with the commission made a huge difference in the outcome.
What was the topic of this LHC report?
It was about whether special districts should exist or not.
Okay, can you send
And
us a link, since the
I would
LHC
be happy-
website, in my experience, is
I would be happy to. I will
difficult?
send it to our general manager, and she will pass it out
Sounds good.
to everyone. It is,
I believe I sent the link for the Little Hoover Commission
Yeah.
back when it first came out, but
Yes.
I will,
just send another one.
I'll send another.
Well, I know the website is lhc.ca.gov, but finding anything there is another matter.
Well,
No, I did a link
it's
to the
been-
actual
it's been-
report.
Just go to the Hoover Commission website.
And
Yeah,
it's
I'll
a
do
good,
that.
it's a good website to go to. It has a lot of information. The
Sorry,
letter
Little
from
Commission.
Pedro Nava, who is the chair of the commission, was highly in favor of special districts, and the fact that special districts report, or support local decision-making. And
Pedro
that's
Nava, as in,
Former coastal commissioner.
former coastal commissioner.
okay, gets around, does he?
He's a very intelligent man with connections. So that was good. One of the discussions in the Little Hoover Commission report was the importance of having reserves and having well-funded reserves. And that's one of the things that was recommended by the Special District Association that every district look at, is what their reserves are, and in particular what their reserve policy is.
And yet sometimes members of the public beat up on, even state level elected officials have beat up on agencies that have what they consider an excessive amount of reserves.
Right, and in fact, it's because, and the way it was explained at the meeting, when reserves were calculated in the past, they included the infrastructure assets of a district in their reserves. So if you had $20 million worth of pipes and pumps, that the state, the Little Hoover Commission was adding that to your reserves.
That makes no sense.
Right, so they've recalculated this, and they've looked at it to clean it up, and again, that was the Special District Association that was able to be instrumental in cleaning that up and improving that. We have our own San Mateo County Special District Association. That meeting was last Tuesday, 6 days ago. And at the meeting, it was decided that it should become a chapter of the California Special District Association. So we will be, in the past, we have been an independent association, but it was decided that with the lobbying abilities now of the new Special District Association and some of the efforts being made in the legislature to question the existence of special districts, it would be better if we were part of the larger group. There was a bill that didn't make it to the governor's desk, but which would have required every special district every 10 years to go to a vote of its public to see if it should continue to exist or not.
Yeah,
that was defeated.
there are state level people that just hate special districts.
Right.
In fact, they're usually the same people that hate small government agencies, period.
Right. So, moving on, topics for future board consideration, we have, what were yours tonight?
He wanted a change in the title on the visa report. And then specifically, he wanted the quantity of each of the promotional items that was within that.
Okay, now those are not board consideration, those
Right.
are just,
Yeah.
So there were
reports.
additional, but I just remembered I had meant to mention this, that because of meeting with the state, the Regional Water Quality Board, and the importance of making sure that that happened in a timely fashion, I had already registered to be at the CSTA conference. And I asked Kathy to go in my stead, because once you've paid for it and it's that close, you don't get a refund. So she was able to attend, and of course, given the location in Monterey, she was able to save the hotel cost because she just stayed at home. But I will ask her to put together just a memo to the board of what she thought the key elements were in her attendance.
yes.
Right.
And she was able to attend, oh, one of the other things that was very important there was the, getting your conflict of interest, your certifications for your ethics training and your harassment training. And one of the things that did come up was the importance, my words, of making sure you have a good, a very good and up-to-date social media set of policies. Because somebody can go on social media and say things that you would like to be able to fire them for, but you can't unless you have already put it into your policies.
And it is one of the policies I've been working on.
So for every council and
I'd rather
district,
just have a good set of policies that everybody knows, so they know how to operate, because I don't want to fire anybody.
we don't, yeah, well, but sometimes you have to, and
Well,
sometimes they don't quite remember that when their social media is such an interesting.
Well, we discussed that here, I don't remember what action we took.
We're
Beverly's
updating our
working on a
policies.
policy.
I'm working on a policy. The media policy is not the social media policy. The media policy is how SAM itself interacts with
Right.
the media. The social media is really more about how staff represent themselves on social media. And so Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, whatever the next thing is gonna be.
Whatever the
Yeah.
next one is.
Whatever my kids are already on, yeah, that.
And
Well,
there
as soon
was.
as you find out they're on, they'll be on the next one.
well,
No, as soon as I join, that's when it becomes less cool and they move on.
All right, just join. Oh, I
Yeah.
have to quit. But it's very important to be aware of those kinds of things. The horror stories were
Yep.
funny and scary all at the same
Yep.
time.
Yeah.
The horror stories over ethics violations.
Ethics violations, not so much. It was the social media
Yeah.
and the harassment.
You hear them a lot with police and fire, where there have been a lot of cases in the last 3 or 4 years where
Yeah.
they've had presence on a personal level that's not reflected well.
You're talking about Anthony Weiner?
I'm just saying in general without using names.
Yes. Yes. Do we need a motion to adjourn, or shall we all just
I
cheer?
don't hear any objection.
Let's go.
Let's go. Speaking of which,